stick it on the gap on the other side, no big deal. And now we're back to using regular stitches again. So I want you to go all the way across, but not all the way, I should say. We're actually going to stop so that you're just going until the third gap. Okay, so you got 1, 2, and you want to seal in the third one. You don't want to go any further than that, but you can go just up until the edge there, so just until the third. And let's keep on going. So we're just working our way across then, and we just want to get in so that we at least get to the third gap from the corner, the starting corner, and that is a good indication of a neck collar size for your young one. So just continuing to match. So basically, as I said before, we're looking at the opposite side. So there's one gap, this is the corner, gap, gap. So this is the third. So we want to stop at the third gap. Just like so. And now we're just going to use our fancy dancy scissors, cut over and pulling it out. And again, just you might want to tie this because it's a child's going to be using it and probably playing rough with it. So you might want to actually give it a good tie before, you know, because some things just need to be tied, I guess. Okay, and so we're just going to hide in your straggler just like we did before. Just like so. And then just go about an inch or so and just continue to hide it. And then you might want to tie it somewhere else along that as well. This is the inside of the coat, so it's not going to make too much of a deal. So you need to repeat this again on the other side, going to the third last gap. Okay, so we just finished this side, so now I want to do this side. And because I worked on the outside going on the way in, I like to work in one direction. So I'm going to turn this as well and do from the outside going in. So we're going to turn it upside down. And start your slip knot and begin to do it again. So just slip in your hook, looking for the corners. Just got to feel for it, but you do get used to this pattern as well. Just put everything over top, including the straggler, grab it and pull it through, and we're going to single crochet again, matching everything back together. And I want you to go to the third gap again, just like we did on the other side. And if you didn't go to the third gap, you went somewhere else, make sure you just match it for yourself. So just to make sure that the coat stays on the child in an even manner. So just continue to do that. We'll meet you back up at the end again. So on the third gap, we now just did our final single crochet in. Again, just trim over your hand with your fancy dancy scissors, pulling them up. And again, you might want to tie that extra, and again, weaving in your edge to the actual seam that you just created on the other side. So we're not quite done our project yet. We got a few things. The hexagonal is not a true body shape. It's pretty close, but it looks like it's pretty close, but it's just a little bit too short. So we want to extend our length, and we also then want to make the lapels a little bit bigger on the front so we can overlap the coat without the child getting cold. So right now we're just going to turn the thing inside out, sorry, inside right, so we're just going to pull it through just like so, and now we're looking at the true outside of the coat. So let's pull it in, inside right or inside out? Inside right. Okay, so there you go. And so there is the actual exterior of your coat right here. And it's already looking pretty fabulous, but now what we want to do is grow the lapel even more. So let's begin to do that next. And what we want to do is that So what we want to do now is we want to extend just this seam and the opposite seam over here by 2 more rows only. So let's begin to do that next. So now what we want to do is we want to grow the lapel even more. So we want to shift it over, and we want to shift it over by 2 because right now they equal each other. So you can't seal up a coat if they equal each other. So you got to have some overlap. So what I want to do is I want to make 2 more rows going over, and in this side I want to make 2 more rows going back to provide an overlap. But also the length of the coat is a little bit too short. So I want to actually grow that by 2 more as well. So here's the fabulous thing. If we start on one side, work our way all the way down, around the corner, back down, and back over and then back up and do that. That's one rotation on both sides, right? So if we do that twice, then you get your 2 on both sides, and also you grow your length by 2, which is what you need. So let's begin our next process here. So where are you going to start on your jacket? Well, you notice, remember I told you like we were working on one side versus the other? Well, you want to continue the same consistency. So if I started working on here, this is the good side, but this is actually the back of the side that I was working on, where this side here, this is what I was working on before. So I can continue now to work in this direction going down. Remember, there's a good side and a bad side of any kind of granny square. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. You want to keep your stitching consistent. So you just want to do it. So slip knot it, everybody, and just going over. And we want to go into the very corner on the upper edge here. And again, we just want to feel for it. And we want to chain up. We want to slip it in and chain up 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And we want to put another one in there. So just like we were doing a regular corner before, even though we're not going to be building it anymore on there, we want to chain 1, and then we want to work along the runway. So we're going to work all the way down the front of the coat in the same fashion. And so the runway gets 3 double crochets, and then a chain 1, and then 3 double crochets again, and chain 1, until we get to the bottom where we actually turn the corner, and then we do 2 double crochets, 1 chain, and 2 double crochets. So let's begin to do that as we work all the way around, and we'll catch back up on the first turn. So we're coming up to the very end, and you're going to notice the stragglers. Remember I didn't tell you anything to do with those? Well, this is the area that we're going to put those into position. So why didn't I make the hexagonal bigger than, and the reason for it is if I make the hexagonal bigger on all sides, the sleeves are going to be way too long for your child. So that's why we fastened everything together, and now we're just putting the final coat. So again, on the corner, I just want to hold down the stragglers like it's the center of your project so that they fasten in. So it's a 2, 1, 2. So 2 double crochets, 1 chain, and 2 double crochets. And again, I'm putting the straggler down so it gets lost. And also too, you can actually you work that straggler in if you want to as well. So just want to bury it in. And because of the material, you're not going to see it. So we're back on the runway again, and now we're actually on the base of the coat, going across. And so what we'll do is just keep on going like you were, and we'll meet back up at the center point where I'll show you how to skip over that instead of making it look abnormal. So we're now at the very base of the bottom where the seam is actually on the right there. So now what we want to do is we're on the runway, so we're just going to chain our 1 as normal. And because of where you did the seam, you're going to have a little bit of a gap on the one side of the seam and then a little bit of a gap on the other. So what we want to do, instead of putting the 3 in there, what you want to do is just put in 1 double crochet, and then you want a gap, and then, sorry, by chaining 1, and then into the other side of the seam. So basically, you're going to treat that the next time you go around is that there's actually 3 here when there's actually only 2. So you're just going to think that there's 3, just to keep the consistency of the pattern. And so basically, you chain 1 after that, and just continuing to work along the runway with your 3 double crochets and chaining 1 as you work along. So let's continue to go along until we get to the other side of the base of this jacket. So now back on the corner on the other side, and just feeling for the corner again, we're just going to chain our 1 from the runway and then just feel it, and then put in your 2, 1, 2. So 2 double crochets, 1 chain, and 2 double crochets. So you can obviously see that there's a pattern that works throughout this entire thing that makes it a lot more easier. Okay, and now we're just going to turn the coat again, and now we're just going to work up the other side of the lapel. And we'll meet you back up on the other side when we get to the edge, where we're going to turn around and go back in the opposite direction. Okay, we're now on the final before we get to the collar area. So let's finish off. We're on the runway right now. We're just finishing off the last runway spot. Okay, and then chain 1, and then go right into the corner. And remember how we started off with the chaining of 3 and then we double crocheted into the corner? So you want to finish this side to be consistent. So put in 2 double crochets, and now we're ready now to turn your material, just like so. So now we're going to turn it and work our way back, going back along through the bottom and back up the other side. So let's begin by chaining 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And what I would do at this point is that you have 2 double crochets here in a row. You're not ready to jump into the first gap yet because you'll leave a gap. So why not just double crochet into the first stitch available, okay, and then put in your 3 double crochets into the first gap. Okay, just like so. And so now what we want to do is chain 1 and just work the rest of the just the same way, and on the corners do your 2, 1, 2, and then at the very end, because we just did that kind of change there with the 2 double crochets right in a row, let's do that on the other side when we get back there. So let's go all the way around, everybody, and we'll meet you back up on the other side of the lapel, because everything is pretty well the same as what you've been doing all along. So we're working along the edge now and on the bottom and where the seam is. And remember what I told you before, like in order to jump over the seam, we did 1 double crochet, we put in a gap, so we chained 1 and then a double crochet on the other side of that. And we did that to maintain a pattern. So this time when we go past that point, this is the actual runway gap before we actually get to that moment. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to treat the gap, and the next one as if it's 1. So on this one, we're just going to chain over 1 and then just jump onto the other side of that whole configuration. And so basically, you've just treated this pattern, and you will never be able to really see that very much unless you point it out to somebody that you did that. But now you can keep your patterning consistent by doing such a maneuver. So it works out really good because this kind of yarn really can hide a lot of stuff like that. Even if it wasn't a thick yarn or an eyelash yarn, it wouldn't be that noticeable that people would catch it. So you can still be fabulous and do amazing stuff with your crochet. So continue to work around to the top of the lapel area where we're going to actually cast off on this rotation and begin to do all the fabulous stuff as far as the trim and like the collar and the bottom section. So let's begin to do that next. We're now coming up to the very last section before the corner, just like so what we did before, and we're in the last gap on the runway, like so. Okay, so we want to put in our 3, and remember what we did on the other side, that we put 2 double crochets in a row. So just put another double crochet into the stitch before the actual gap. Okay, and now just put it in the final double crochet into the final gap area. So then that matches basically what you've done on the other side. Get your fancy dancy scissors again and just cut over your hand. Don't cut your hand, but just go like that. Just pull it out like that. And again, you may want to actually put an extra little tie in there. Just be very careful. You don't want like really ugly knots because this will be seen by all your friends. So just what I would do is just weave it in. Create a knot, just like so, and just work it into the seam area going down. Because it is the fancy dancy yarn here, you really won't see this yarn at all. And again, if you want to tie it somewhere else, you can. You know, kids tend to be a little bit rough with stuff, so that is your call. You're the artist. You get to decide. So what I want to do now is trim, and go like that. So now your jacket is long enough, okay, and now it folds over top of each other. So now you can do a button formation. But let's not worry about that yet. We still have one more rotation to do on each one of the sleeves in order to make the sleeves long enough. And I also want to do a fancy dancy collar, but I don't really want to touch the front seam very much. I think that even the jacket that I've done for the inspiration of this, I think that by leaving it blank in the beginning really makes the collar and the bottom really pop, and even the sides really pop if you leave it blank, but again, that's your call. So let's continue along. Okay, for my next trick, I'm going to be doing the sleeves, and I'm going to be doing the collar, and then I'm going to do the bottom section here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep using the same eyelash yarn because I like the furriness of it. I'm going to add a secondary eyelash yarn that is more brown copper.